morning. As you know, I've been going through this book of Philippians, and it is the book of joy. It is the book of happiness. It is us getting in touch with the fact that we can be happy, we can be joyful regardless of the circumstances and regardless of what we're going through. One of the things that we kind of ended up with last week is that the happiest people in life are the most selfless people in life. They think of themselves less than anybody else, and they seem to be the happiest. But it seems like when we're absorbed with ourselves, when it's all about each one of us, when we become absorbed with that, it seems like to me that it causes discontentment with ourselves and discontentment with others, and it also leads to unhappiness. Many people think that happiness is just a matter of luck, that you just kind of luck into it. They think that if you're happy, you're just lucky. It's a quality, though, that you can learn. You may not have ever thought about it like this, but if I mention it to you, you automatically know what I'm talking about, because you can instinctively pick out the qualities that cause you to be happy, and the bad qualities that make you to be unhappy. For instance, if we were to make two columns up here, if I were to bring a big whiteboard here, and I were to split it right down the middle, and we were to list on one side of the column what makes us happy, and the other side of the column what does not make us happy, we would soon learn after a while that there are certain traits, certain characteristics, certain things that we do that will not make us happy. And there are certain things that we do that do make us happy. For example, if I were to put impatience on one side, would that go onto the unhappiness or the happiness side? Well, it would probably go onto the unhappy side. For example, if I were to put cruelty, would that go on the happiness side or the unhappiness side of the ledger? Or if I were to put kindness, that would go on the happy side of the ledger, wouldn't it? All of those things, we could make an entire list like that. And then this morning we're starting out with chapter 2 of Philippians and going all the way from verses 19 down through 30. I want to read those to you as you can pick out some of those things. Now, first of all, I want to say this. I looked at this at the first part of the week and I said, what in the world does that have to do with anything? First of all, it was just somebody expressing gratitude for somebody else. And so in this book of happiness, in this book of joy, what in the world does this have to do with this? So just hold on here. It says, I hope in the Lord to send Timothy to you soon, so that I may be cheered when I receive news about you. I have no one else like him, who takes a genuine interest in your welfare. For everyone else looks after his own interests, not those of Jesus Christ, but you know that Timothy has proved himself, because as a son with his father, he has served with me in the work of the gospel. I hope, therefore, to send him, Timothy, as soon as I see how things go with me. I'm confident that I myself will come soon. I think it is necessary to also send back to you Epaphroditus, my brother, my fellow worker, and my fellow soldier, who is also your messenger, whom you sent to take care of my needs. For he longs for all of you and is distressed because you heard he was ill. Indeed, he was ill and almost died. But God had mercy on him, and not on him only, but also on me, to spare me sorrow upon sorrow. Therefore, I am all the more eager to send him back to you, so that when you see him again, you may be glad, and I may have less anxiety. Welcome him in the Lord with great joy, and honor men like him, because he almost died for the work of Christ, risking his life to make up for the help you could not give him. The things in this passage that I read to you are examples of of 4 things we must build into our life to make us happy. In verse 19 it says, I'm going to send you Timothy. In verse 25 it again says, I'm going to send back to you Epaphroditus, who is a member of your church. Then Paul does something that is very, very unusual or very unique in his situation. He gives you 2 guys that are role models within the church of Jesus Christ. I want you to think for just a minute of 2 guys. You don't have to, just blurt them out. But I want you to think of 2 individuals that are very, very important to Grace Point. And that's what he's pointing out here this morning. He is saying in the church of Philippi, there are 2 individuals that I would like to point out that are extremely important. Let me just stop for a minute. When Paul says, I don't have anybody in my life like Timothy, then you better pay attention to him. 2 of the books of the New Testament, as a matter of fact, 1st and 2nd Timothy, are not written by Timothy. They are written by Paul himself as letters to Timothy. As a matter of fact, in one of those writings, he writes, don't let anybody look down on you because of your age. And I would say to the young people here today, don't let anybody look down on you because of your age. But be a person of God. It doesn't matter if you've been in the way for 1 year, 1 month, or 100 years, or 100 months. It just doesn't matter. Don't look down upon yourself, because condemnation is not of God. It is of the devil. Now, 2 of the books of the Bible are called 1st and 2nd Timothy. Then he says, there's another guy I want to point out. His name is Epaphroditus. Now, he says, I want you to welcome him and honor him because he nearly died for my sake. And the first thing you have to learn is this. You're going to have to learn to shift the focus away from myself. I have to care more about than just me. I've got to care about the needs of those around me. All I think about is me, myself, and I. I'm going to be pretty miserable as a person. And Paul gives Timothy as an example of this. He says this in verses 20 through 21. I have nobody else like him who takes a genuine interest in your welfare, for everybody else looks out for his own interest. Somebody came into our office today and asked us, the pastors, we're sitting there, myself and Pastor Larry, and they asked us, what are you doing? And we just said, oh, we're doing pastor stuff. And they said, well, that's pretty important stuff. And I said, well, I've said for a long time that if you don't care, it's the easiest job in the world. But if you do care for the people that you are tending to, it is the hardest job in the world. And so here is an individual that is looking more about his interest than he is about others' interests than he is about himself. Could you name people who are looking after your interest? Not many people could. I know that there is a tremendous staff that we have here, and I just want to thank God for the individuals that God has put into my life, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt they are looking out for the interest of myself. Now that seems pretty selfish when I'm talking about a selfless sermon. But it does feel good to know that there are individuals out there that are looking out for my good, that are praying for me, that are loving me, regardless of my faults. I naturally tend to look after my own interest. I don't tend to look at your interest. I don't get up in the morning and I wonder if you're having a hard time today. I would like to be able to say that as a pastor especially. I would like to be able to say that I'm looking after your interest, but most of the time I'm looking after my own. Notice the phrase there. He says, no one is like him. In other words, unselfish people are very, very, very rare. Nobody else is like him who takes a genuine interest. There may be people who fake interest in you, but Paul says He takes a genuine interest in you and your welfare and your betterment as a person. The first key to happiness is you've got to change your focus. When you walk into a room, you're not normally thinking, who in this room needs my help? You walk into a room and you think, how do I look? Am I put together just right? You have to intentionally train yourself to do the opposite, to shift your focus away from yourself and onto other people. For those of you that are single adults, let me just give you a little fatherly advice. I guess I'm old enough now at 58 that I can give that. I want to say this. It's better to sit at home without a date than to go on a date with somebody that's all full of themselves. Let me say that again. It's better to sit at home without a date than go on a date with somebody that's all full of themselves. All wrapped up into themselves. I want to tell you that you'll be waiting in the driveway, guys, for a long time for a girl that's all wrapped up into herself. And girls, you'll be waiting a while before he shows up if you have a guy that's all full of himself. So God tells us that the way to happiness is to lead a selfless life. But one of the things that saddens me in my life, as I think about it, is how many times I have missed the needs around me of people that I love. I just totally missed them because I wasn't paying attention to the needs that were around me. The hurts, the heartaches, the burdens that other people carry. This past week, we saw one of our own go home, and it hurt on the inside. And there were individuals that were all around us that were hurting. That happens all the time, every day. To individuals that are in our world, that we don't realize what they carry around. All we care about oftentimes is the way they treat us. Can I tell you that probably they've had some kind of crisis in their life if they don't treat you just right. It says in Philippians 2:4, I love the Message paraphrase, it says, don't be so obsessed with getting your own advantage. Forget yourself long enough to lend a helping hand. The second thing you're going to need to learn to be happy is this. If you want to be happy, you're going to have to become someone that people trust. You're going to have to become someone that people trust. Proverbs 13:15 says, those who can't be trusted are on the road to ruin. So here's another quality we can learn. If you learn to be trustworthy, you're going to be a whole lot happier than people who aren't full of trust. Again, Paul uses Timothy as an example in verse 22. He says, Timothy has proven himself because as a son with his father, he has served with me in the work of the gospel. Again, he's giving this guy as an example. He says, I've watched this guy in action. He has proven himself over and over and over again that he is selfless in his actions and he is trustworthy. In other words, what he says he's going to do, he will do, regardless of the cost that it takes. God's Word translation says, you know what kind of person Timothy proved to be. Do people know what kind of person you really are? Are you trustworthy? Are you what you say you are? Are you the real deal? You wear a mask here and there, and you wear a mask over there, and here is what someone said. That's what they used to do in Greek theater. One actor would play many parts. He'd come out, and he'd wear a mask, and he'd play a part. Then he'd go back behind the stage, and he'd get another mask, and he'd come out and wear the mask, and he'd play a part and go back. He's being different roles to different groups of people, playing different parts. The same guy, but wearing different masks. The word for the guy in Greek is called hypocrite. It means somebody who acts this way on the golf course, and this way with his kids, and this way at church, and then that way with his wife. you don't really know who he is because he is constantly changing. How do you develop a reputation for reliability? Two things. One, you live with integrity. What I mean by that is you make sure that my actions match my words. He says what you see is what you get. Integrity does not mean that you're perfect. If perfection was required, then none of us would have integrity because nobody's perfect. Look at what it says in Proverbs, though. It says, reliable friends who do what they say are like cool drinks in a sweltering heat. They are refreshing. Look at the opposite of that, though. Putting confidence in an unreliable person is like chewing with a toothache or walking on a broken foot. It'll kill us. Not only do we live in integrity, secondly, I keep my promise. Psalm says this, these people always do what they promise, no matter how much it may cost them. So if I want to be happy, then I've got to shift my focus away from myself. It's not about me. And second, I've got to become somebody that people trust. Here's the third skill. You've got to learn to be happy in life. Learn how to work well with others. Let me say that again. Learn how to work well with others. I want to say this, that if parents don't teach their kids this lesson, they may not learn it in school. You may learn how to work well with others, but what I'm really talking about here, I'm talking about having the skill of being a team member, the skill of collaboration, the skill of getting along. If you don't work well with other people, you're going to be unhappy much of your life. Do I need to learn in order to work with other people? We need to learn two things, the Bible says. First of all, learn to cooperate. I need to learn how to cooperate. That's not something you automatically do. That's one of the goals of parenting. Teach your children, for example. For those of you that have had kids, you can understand this. One of the things that is hard for children to understand is they need to share their toys. Don't they? Teaching your children how to cooperate, often with people who are very different in personality, learn to cooperate. Paul gives the second guy, Epaphroditus, as an example of this quality. He says, I send back to you, Epaphroditus, my brother, my fellow worker, and my fellow soldier, who is also your messenger, whom you sent to take care of my needs. What is Paul saying here? He is saying that this guy knows how to be a team member. This guy knows how to work in a group. He's not a lone ranger. He doesn't live his life by himself, but he is a team member. And I want to say this, that we cannot make it alone in this world. We're not meant to make it alone. Now, I just want to tell you real openly, the better you learn this skill, the happier you'll be in life. Most of the world, though, is different from you. I learned early on that not everybody, even within inside of the church, thinks like I do. Now, I wish they would, but they don't. Some people like fast songs, some people like slow songs, some people like very operatic songs, some people like hard rock. There's a group of individuals that even like headbanging music. I used to be kind of critical of the individuals who would say they liked stuff like headbanging music. I used to be critical. I'm still critical of them. They're just kind of weird. But let me say this. For those individuals who have liked the old-time music, that which you've gotten used to, maybe it was whoever it was, maybe it was Southern Gospel or the Gaithers or whatever it was, that you like that kind of stuff. On the flip side of that, there are individuals who think that music is not as good as what you think it is. Now, I've got one of two choices. I can criticize those individuals for being different, or I can learn to cooperate with those individuals who are different. I got to thinking about that because I kind of have one foot on one side and one foot on the other side. And I think that now I've kind of shifted a little more on this side. For example, when I was growing up in the church, we had a certain kind of music that I liked very, very, very much, and we went to church, and it was called church music. You knew when it was in church, that's what they sang, that's what they did. It was reserved for church, that's all they did. And then, of course, then all of a sudden there was a new wave that came through, and I remember it was while we were in Lehigh Acres, Florida, many, many moons ago, about 30 years ago. And my wife and I started liking this stuff called integrity music. Now, if other individuals would have found out that I was listening to integrity music, they would have thought they're bad people. So what we would do is we would rock out to this integrity music until we got to church, and when we would pull in the driveway, we would turn it down automatically. Because there were individuals that were just going to dig in their feet, and they were going to say, there is only one type of music that is good. I got to thinking about that since I came to Cove First and then later on, and I thought to myself, you know what, I was highly critical of those individuals who were way over here that said this is the kind of music that we should play in church. It's church music. That's what it is. And I was highly critical of them. And then I got over into this camp. And then I started hearing things like, some very, very different music, even from the camp that I was in. And I said, in fact, when I was in South Portland one time, there was a group there that literally made that place shake. And I said to myself, okay, what is my reaction going to be if all of a sudden individuals come in and one Sunday the pastor says to us, listen, we've shifted focus. And what we're going to do now is just strictly Screamo music. Screamo. You ever heard that music? You ever heard it? It's of the devil. At least that's the kind of phrase that I used to hear. So I said to myself, you know what? What am I going to do? How am I going to react when they begin to play Screamo music? And how am I going to react with all of that? Well, I think I'll quit the church. That's what I think I'll do. No, I won't. I'll cooperate because I realize that there are individuals who are different than me. They don't like exactly the same things. My wife, we were out yesterday, and we went to a place because somebody had given us a gift certificate. That's always the nice way to go. I love that. I love gift certificates. It's been a while since Phyllis has given me one, and I would kind of like to see one just once ever so often, but now she doesn't even do that. She used to. When I first came, it was like she appreciated me, but now I don't even see those anymore. So I guess I'll live with that, and I'll live with Phyllis, and she'll gripe, and she'll tell me she's going to beat the tar out of me, and I'll be afraid. But my wife, be quiet. My wife, for some reason, likes two things in life. She likes Brussels sprouts very, very much, and she likes broccoli very, very much. The two things that she likes, I think, stink like dirty feet. I mean, they smell. They're not good for you. They cause problems in your life. They cause problems in our marriage. I go to kiss her and she smells like that and I won't kiss her anymore. I'm done. I'm done. She's going to have that nonsense. I'm not doing anything. Anyway, she's very different than I am. But that doesn't mean that I don't cooperate with her and make our marriage as happy and as healthy as it possibly can be, even in spite of Brussels sprouts and broccoli, of which I dislike very much. You're nuts. Then you guys cook it up and have my wife come over. But I'm not going to have my house smelling like dirty feet. So you guys give me a hard time. Paul uses here the passage, 3 relational metaphors in teamwork. He says this: my brother, my fellow worker, my fellow soldier. What is he saying? He's saying that life and ministry, life is a family, it's a fellowship, and it's a fight. It's a family. He calls him my brother. The church is the family of God. That means every one of you are related to each other. If you know the Lord, the people you're sitting next to this morning are your brothers and your sisters. In fact, for thousands of years when people went to church, they used to call each other brother and sister. Maybe we ought to bring that back because we kind of lost that attitude of what we were, and that is family, regardless of the differences that we have with each other. For example, I have a lovely sister. She is my biggest fan. If you've been on Facebook, she comments on every sermon I've ever done. Now, I'm not sure she likes them really, but but at least she comments on them and says she likes them, and she tries to encourage me. Why? Because she is my family. Now, I want to say this very, very quickly behind that. People will say, you know, blood's thicker than water. What that means, I'm not quite sure. But I also know that that the blood of Jesus Christ has made us family. And that blood is thicker than the blood that you're thinking of. Well, you know, I can't go against them because they're my cousin, or my aunt, or my uncle, or whatever it might be. Well, that person that you're talking about might be your brother and sister in Christ. I remember my spiritual father used to say, don't condemn the person that God might be commending. Which is so true. I love the message, one of the message paraphrases of the Beatitudes. He says, you're blessed when you can show people how to cooperate instead of compete or fight. Not only do I need to cooperate, but here's the second one, I need to be considerate. The more considerate you are of other people, now you need to get this, you guys who are just heckling me, the happier you're going to be. When you see somebody in a restaurant being inconsiderate to a waiter or a waitress, they're unhappy. Those two things go together. This is the key to happiness. The more considerate you learn to be of other people's needs, the more considerate you learn to be as a husband or wife, the happier your marriage is going to be. 1 Corinthians says this, you must get along with each other. You must learn to be considerate. You must learn to be considerate of one another, cultivating a life that's in common. Sometimes I'll hear and you'll hear people say something like this, I just say what I think. There's a word for that. It's called rude. And if we're proud of that, realize that even a parrot can say what it thinks. A parrot can swear, for example. I heard one do it one time. It takes intelligence and it takes character to be considerate of each other. 1 Corinthians says, I don't just do what I like or what's best for me, but I do what's best for everyone so that they may be saved. There's a fourth quality I want to point out. If I genuinely want to be happy in life, the fourth choice you need to make in a happy life is to live for something worth dying for. Live for something worth dying for. Until you have that you will not have ultimate happiness in your life. I must live for something worth dying for. Most people are giving first-class allegiance to second-class causes, and those causes are betraying them. One guy said this, I climbed the ladder of success, but when I got to the top, I found it was leaning against the wrong wall. A lot of times we give big-time commitment to a small-time causes that aren't going to last whatsoever. Made up my mind last few years, and I told you last week, if I had it all over to do again, I would make less of the lesser things. I was willing to die on any hill. As a matter of fact, I've said crazy things about what I was willing to die for, but what I found out is there's not much worth dying for, is there? Sometimes we give all our energy and all our money and all our time. When we ask how much, it's going to matter 5 years from today. How much is it going to matter in 10 years? How much is it going to matter in 1,000 years? How have you changed the course of destiny within your lifetime? What is it that we've done within our lifetime that has changed the course of destiny within our lifetime? The best use of our life is to invest in it that which outlasts our life. You need to live for something worth dying for. Look at verse 27. It says, indeed he was very ill. When he's talking about Epaphroditus in verses 27 and 30. Indeed he was very ill and he almost died. He risked his life for the work of Christ. Isn't that amazing? And was at the point of death while trying to do for me the things you couldn't do because you were far away. I want to give you a little background. This surprised me. Paul is in prison in Rome, like we talked about, and the Philippian church is in Greece. It's 800 miles away from where Paul was in prison. The Philippian church decides to send Paul a care package, and of course, they didn't just wrap it up and take it to the post office, and then they sent it by air over across the sea, and they were good to go with that. Nothing wrong with that. I like this better than the way Epaphroditus did it. But he went into the church, and the church said, okay, here's the deal, you guys. Paul is 800 miles away from us, but he is our leader, and he needs something in his life. And so they decide to send him a care package, and they said, are there any joiners? Anybody that wants to do that? Epaphroditus says, I'll do it. He raises his hand and said, count me in, man, I'm doing it. I want to be a part of this whole thing. Realize this, he has an 800-mile journey. Now that doesn't sound too bad if you've got a car and you could go and do that, or if you can get on a plane and go 800 miles, that doesn't sound too bad. But when you have to hoof it, I mean hoof it, that's all you've got. Maybe a camel, they don't walk too fast. Whatever it is that you've got, man, you've got to take that, you've got to take it yourself. And while you were there, while you were going on your way, your merry way, what happened was you got very, very ill and sick. And while you got sick, there was also people and wars that were going in between the two, between the 800 miles. But Epaphroditus said, I'm going to give my life for something worth dying for. What a commitment. I want to ask you a couple questions. I'll end with these. What commitment have you started that you haven't yet finished? What commitment have you made that you need to keep? Maybe it's a commitment to your spouse. Maybe it's a commitment you've made to God. Of course, I'm going to mention this. 3 years ago, many of us, we made financial commitments called Daring Faith. That ends in about 3 months around Thanksgiving time. What have you started that you need to complete in your life? What have you begun? Let me ask you a second question. Is your commitment to Christ deep enough to cause you to risk your life? Many people say, I'll live for Christ as long as it's convenient. But right now there's a good game on, and I want to see that. Excuse me. Most people would be happy to live for Christ as long as it's convenient, as long as it's comfortable, as long as we get through this life without too many inconveniences in our life. This is why God says, honor people like this. God says, honor those who take risk in sharing the gospel. I know that many of you here came from Cub First, now you're here. Some of you came from Central, now you're here. But I want to say thank you to those who have paid the price down through the years to make this place what it is today. I'm not talking about 20 years worth. I'm talking about, holy cow, there's individuals here that have been here for, well, where's Hubert at? Where are you, Hubert? You're over there. When did you join the church? When did you join Cub First? 1967. 57. I wasn't even born yet. You were 55? 57? You joined the same time Hubert did. You and Hubert were in the same graduating class. Anybody else? Talking about individuals who have stuck by it, who have done the deed, who have been faithful, who have literally said, I am going to give my life for something that's worth dying for. In other words, something that is eternal and everlasting. And I commend you for doing that. And we who have reaped those benefits down through the years, even the last 20, we who have reaped those benefits owe a great deal of gratitude to those individuals who have stuck by the stuff all of those years. Amen? Even the last 10 years. Those individuals who went through some tough times and things got pretty scary and skimpy and all that kind of stuff. You guys need to reap the benefits. We're reaping the benefits of that now. And we thank God for it. And I want to thank you for sticking by the stuff and just saying, you know what? This thing is worth dying for if we had to. And there's not much that's worth dying for, you guys. I was talking to somebody, I can't remember who it was. They were talking about somebody that they knew, and they said to me, I would give a kidney for them. I thought, that's a strange way of saying you really love them. But you know what? What they were saying is that there are individuals who are never dying souls that will never die that they would give their lifeblood for. That's how we are people of integrity. That's how we're people who stick by the stuff. That's how we're glued together. Well, I want to say this. I hope that if I'm 800 miles away and in prison, you guys will come see me. And I want you to do it. I want you to walk it. I don't want you talking about, how dedicated you are. You are no more dedicated than Epaphroditus was. But I do want you to give your life for something worth living, for dying for, and living for. Amen? Because sometimes it's harder to live for something than it is to die for something. For me to live as Christ, to die is gain. In other words, if I'm going to live, I'm going to live for Jesus. And if I die, guess where I'm at? I'm in a better place. I'm in a better place.
Set my heart on fire.